Thank you for joining us today. So, a couple things that I wanted to go through first is I wanted to celebrate some of your wins through this program so far. So, I threw up a bunch of your stats. The stats that I do have was based off of the first couple of months that you were in the program. So, we are down 1.2 pounds, but your case has actually been one of the most interesting because your weight has stayed almost the same the whole time, but we've been able to body recomp. And so that's been the most exciting part. So even though that top number is not super different, you were able to lose 5% in body fat. You were able to gain 8 pounds in lean mass, muscle, and lose 7 pounds in fat. So that to me is a huge victory. I love some body recomps, just showing that like the scale number is not the only number. So good job on that. You also lost zero point 0.5 inches on your neck, 2 inches in your waist, and 2.5 inches in your hips. So that's so cool. Good job.
All of that.
How do you feel about your progress so far?
I feel like it started off really well and that I've been able to like make a lot of changes in my diet and everything that helped me like make these changes pretty quickly. Um, it's just kind of made me feel better like with like cheer and just like tumbling and like made me feel more confident and able to do it because I really haven't changed weight wise, but like strength wise, like I've been able to feel stronger and feel better.
I love that. Awesome. And so can we go back to like when we first started the program? What drove you to start in the first place? Where were you in life and what did you feel like you needed?
I think it was just like I've been wanting to get in better shape and to like make those changes for such a long time. And I've tried so many things that just didn't work for me that like couldn't get me to like do it. And so I thought like to get me started, I needed to have somebody to hold me accountable. And so kind
Absolutely.
of like doing this program helped me like find that accountability to get myself going. So then now I can start to hold myself accountable for those things.
Cool. Can you talk us through a couple of things that you said you've tried a lot of different things that didn't work for you? What did that look like?
I've always loved to work out. So I've like always like did lots of workouts and like over the summers I'd get really good and I'd like do really well in the summers, but the second school starts, everything would stop. And then I've always kind of just like never really knew where to go with food, like how to eat better. So like I try some minor things, but I was never able to like actually build up to have a good diet that wasn't cereal. But
Okay.
yeah,
And what do you think was different through this process that allowed you to be a little bit more successful?
I think because it started with like adding things instead of taking things away. So it kind of like helped you build to like where you know what you need to be eating, and then you could work on like backtracking. But it's more important to have the good stuff than it is to like fully just eat bad. Because if you eat bad, you eat bad. But like if you add the good stuff, it at least kind of starts to balance out. Then you could work on taking the other stuff away.
Okay. Awesome. Love that. So let's talk a little bit about the three pillars that we focused on a lot were mindset, nutrition, and fitness. So let's talk about the mindset piece. Do you feel like you discovered anything about yourself or that your perspective or mindset changed at all throughout this process?
I think so to a decent extent. Because like I've always like kind of thought like yeah, food's important. Like yeah, all these things are really important, but it's kind of hard to like make yourself do it. But like at a point, and I kind of forgot it. Um, um, mindset wise, I think it was just like really good to help me like reshape my sight on food, like how I feel about food, and like that like yeah, you can sometimes eat the bad stuff, but if you know it's bad for you and like you want it anyways, make the choice and be okay with it instead of feeling guilty over it. But
Awesome. I love that. So that was a decision, excuse me, a conversation that we've had a few times, kind of that guilt piece. Also, another one was cravings. Can you tell us a little bit about how your cravings have changed throughout the process?
they've actually changed quite a bit. Like I was a Dr. Pepper a day person. And now like I haven't had a Dr. Pepper in so long and I don't crave it either. And like I have a sweet tooth. I'm a big sweet tooth girl. And last night like we were at a little wine night, I guess. And there was a bunch of snacks, a bunch of sweets, and it was just like I ate some and I was like I don't even want this. Like my cravings for all of the sweets I used to like eat a bunch of, like I just don't crave them anymore or care to eat them nearly as much.
Okay, absolutely. That's really cool. So something that I wanted to do was go through some of your my fitness pal entries. So what I did is I picked, don't worry, but I picked one from each month so we could kind of see the evolution, right, of your diet and what you were kind of picking. So what I'll do is pull up a day and have you kind of just tell me what you see in that day. Sound good?
Okay.
Okay. She's like, ah. Let me pull this over. So this one was from when we very first started. This was from November. Tell me what this day looks like for you.
Um, a lot of fast food, my mac and cheese, my cereal. That's how I ate all of the time, really, before we started. It was just a lot of processed foods.
Okay, for sure. And I pulled another one that was pretty similar to give us a different feel for it, but this was pretty normal for you.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's look a month in December. I didn't choose Christmas because that seemed mean. So right after Christmas, I think this reflects pretty closer to how it started to change.
A little bit, yeah.
So we got some fruit in there, starting the day
Uh-huh.
with protein shake. I think those are two major changes that you made.
Yeah.
And then this one was like where you can really, really tell the difference. So in January, there's so much I love about this. So tell me, what do you see?
That's when I started like making my smoothies every morning. So then I knock out so much of like the daily dozen stuff in my morning smoothie. Because then it's just done. And then I just kind of like started actually having meals for like at home, even if it wasn't anything like crazy. Like, yeah, like spaghetti, like it's pretty easy to like cook and like eat it for a couple days. Or like I'll just even have a sandwich sometimes, but it's just like getting some of those, adding greens to it and just like making all of those little changes was really beneficial and not as hard as I thought it was going to be.
Awesome. I love that. Yeah, and I love too that you were able to keep up your calories the whole time because I think a lot of people, especially if they're trying to lose weight specifically, think that they have to lose calories as well. And, we're here to be like, nope, you're an athlete, you need food. So we love that. Did you ever at any point feel like you were like starving or at a deficit or anything like that?
I don't think I've been at a deficit really at all. I mean, there were some days where I didn't have enough calories when I was like trying to take away some of the bad stuff and I didn't have the good stuff to add yet that I was like, okay, this isn't gonna work. But once I like went to the store and re-got stuff, then I was like chilling.
Yeah,
But
let's talk through that struggle because I know that was something pretty early on. You were like, hey, everything in the house is things that and this was when we were kind of dichotomously thinking, right? Can have, can't have. So you're like,
Mhm.
things in the house I can't have, right? Or it felt like you couldn't. So how did that transition for you? What do you do differently now?
I think just like the snacks that I go and get now are just like it's a lot easier to eat better when you have those things. I'm kind of like a out of mind, out of sight. So if all I go and see in the pantry is a bunch of candy, I'm like, I have nothing to eat. But if I go to the pantry and I see like, oh, here's some pistachios, here's some jerky, or like stuff that I can eat that's not bad for me, then I'm like, oh, I'm chilling and I'll get my calories in.
Okay, definitely. And then coming back to that guilt piece just one more time, do you ever feel like you're missing out, or do you feel like you're like not able to do the things that you want to be able to do?
I mean like sometimes, but like not too much. Cause like for like some of my church activities, like there's always a bunch of desserts, there's always a bunch of sweets, and a lot of it I'm like, no. But then like there's some days where I'm like, no, I really want one, so I'm gonna eat one. But it's just like it happens every week, so I don't think I should be eating that every week.
Absolutely. And you're like okay with saying no.
Yeah. But
Cool. I love that. I actually think that's a huge evolution in that piece for just us in general, is like getting to the point where not only are your cravings lower, but you're able to say no and like not feel like you didn't want to say no. Do you know what I mean?
yeah.
Because I've been there too.
Absolutely.
Like, I really want it,
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it still gets me, but then like
but.
not nearly as bad as it used to be.
That's awesome. I love that. All right, let's talk a little bit about your fitness. So your fitness journey was a little unique because you were almost too active, right? So tell me where you came from versus where you started to kind of find balance.
So with cheer, I always had practice and I usually would lift with practice. And I do open gyms and I like to run stadiums a lot. And a lot of that I haven't necessarily changed, but I've added a little bit more rest time. It was halfway forced from injury, but but I've always liked being active. But I've been able to add a little bit more into the lifting side of like strength building, and then I've done a little bit more adding rehab for injury as well.
Okay, I love that. And how is your body feeling as a result of those changes?
It's been feeling a lot better for sure. I feel a lot stronger. I could do a lot more with like cheer and stuff. Like I feel stronger. I can get through my routines better. It's been really nice.
That's awesome. Okay, love it. And then we didn't specifically touch on the other three pillars, which is like stress, sleep, and then social connection. Personal development's kind of in that mindset as well. But do you feel like any of those factors were affected by some of the changes that you've made?
Um,
I guess sleep and stress would be the main ones.
yeah, stress for sure. Mainly just because like it's a little stressful to add things at the beginning and to like make those changes. But then once you get it into the habit, like it's a little bit easier. And like even now, like when I get stressed or busy, the documentation of this is one of the first things that gets thrown out the window. You know what I mean? But I'm really happy that it's a documentation that gets thrown out and not like the actual doing it because I could still do it.
Mm.
And so like being able to like make those such habits that we're like, oh, like I might be stressed, but I still get up and make my smoothie for breakfast. I still eat good for lunch. Like I still am doing the things I need to do. Because that used to stress me out. Like eating healthy, I used to be like, I have no idea how to do that. Like it's not gonna work. But now I'm like, oh, it's normal.
That's awesome. Yeah, let's talk really quick about balance because you're obviously very busy. You've got cheer, you're a nursing student, so you've got a lot going on all the time. So I definitely can tell that this was still difficult to maintain, right? As you were like just the documentation piece, as you're getting into like the competition season and finals and all that stuff. But do you feel like you have been able to find some balance between like school cheer and then living a healthy lifestyle? And what does that look like?
I've been able to find a pretty good balance with it. I think it just comes into the like on my rest days is when I kind of can like focus on myself a little bit more and on my health instead of just like rotting. Because I used to like when I'm dead tired, I will just lay in bed and rot, but that doesn't usually actually make me feel better. So now when I'm like dead tired, like I'm still gonna rest, but I can also find like that time to like, oh, I could eat really good today and I can go for a walk and I don't need to necessarily rot when I'm resting.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. And you also, I feel like, have been doing more things. So I know we talked about the social connection for a second. So social connection, and then also just like taking time to do things for yourself. Can you tell me about either of those?
For sure. So time for doing things for myself is kind of like what I just said, but I also like find those days where I'm like, I can lay in bed and I could read for a few hours and just not have to do school or use my brain or go run or like do anything like too hard or impactful. And then like for just kind of like the social stuff, it's kind of just like I still could go and be social and I could still go out with my friends, but it doesn't mean I have to go out to eat or like have to like eat bad food when I go out with them. But still hard when you travel, but
Yeah, let's talk about that. I know you had mentioned you used to travel and drink a Dr. Pepper and eat a snack when you were driving, right? Like those were two
yeah.
main things for you. So how did that develop for you?
Um, I used to just like, since I drank Dr. Pepper all the time, I'm like, well, if I get tired, like I'm gonna need the caffeine. But like I haven't had caffeine in literally like 2 months,
Whoa!
which is kind of crazy for me, honestly, with how much I used to drink Dr. Pepper. But now I'm like, I really don't need it. I usually just get like a cold water and I blast the AC. And because that's just how I drive in general, because that keeps me awake. But I'm like, I'll go dancing and I won't get home until 2 or 3 a.m. And I'm cold water and AC and I'm chilling. Like I don't necessarily, I had to change my mindset to be like, I don't need it. It was like, it was something like I was telling myself I did, but I really don't.
That brings up a really good point. I think that's a thing that we've talked about, the lies we tell ourselves, right? I think that's the thing that we all go through sometimes, is like convincing ourselves that like I can't do this because I don't have time, or I did it or whatever. So what do you think it is that fuels those, we'll just call them excuses, whatever reasons, right? What do you think it is that fuels those reasons for people to like not take care of themselves? And what have you done to get over that?
Um, I think a lot of the reasons I think about are like um either habits that we've kind of been taught where it's just what feels normal. And when that's your normal, it's like, well, everybody does it, so it's not that big of a deal. And so it kind of has to get over of like, oh wait, just because everybody does it doesn't mean it's necessarily good or right.
Yes.
And then we've kind of talked about this a little bit before too, of a I see a lot of like it's bad for you to eat like crazy bad. Like you know what's like, oh, this probably isn't good for me, but I don't care. Like what's gonna happen? Or like, because like a lot of health issues happen from like a lot of stuff like that, like eating crazy bad, and like you can get a lot of health issues, but it's like, oh, that's not gonna happen to me. And so it's like doesn't have that incentive to change, but it's like, but it will. Like
Bro, Caitlin said the exact same thing. I love that. So, as a 20-something-year-old, why do you care? What makes you want to do something about it now?
I think honestly, just like I'm about to make the transition out of cheer into actually kind of being an adult. And I know like right now I'm crazy active and and I'm busy and I do all these things, but if I can make those transitions now, it's gonna be one less thing that I'm feeling like I have to do when I'm becoming an adult, and it'll kind of be more natural. And it'll be like, oh, yeah, I'm not cheering anymore, but I still go and work out. I still know how to eat healthy. And it's like, so when I'm trying to figure out freaking taxes, I don't have to worry about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk really quick about that. That was actually one of our exercises this past week, is like best case, worst case scenario. So since we just talked about like the importance of kind of doing something about it now, we'll talk worst case scenario first. So say that you're, obviously in your 20s, you're a cheerleader, you're super busy, you have a really rigid schedule, you're in school, right? So as a 20-something-year-old, and we can kind of generalize it here, let's talk worst case scenario. What happens if you don't adopt any of these good behaviors? What are the things that could happen as you start to transition out of school?
um, I think what I see the most of is like when you don't build those good habits and you're eating really bad and you don't take care of yourself. I think of it mostly with the athletes because that's who I'm around most of the time. It puts them in such a dangerous position for injuries because they don't get enough protein, they don't get enough things, that they don't have the endurance to do what we're supposed to do and that we get pushed to do. And a lot of times it feels like you don't have a choice, and it's like, no, your coach tells you to do it, you do it. And it causes a lot of injuries that can not only impact their athletics but can long-term injuries, because a lot of times they just keep pushing through them, which I get doing that, but I do it too, but it's like a puts them in a bad situation to actually heal and be able to make transitions afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. And then what about like the structure piece? Because I think that's going to be a huge struggle for a lot of people. Is like, okay, you're in practice, your coach tells you what to do, or your strength and conditioning coach tells you what to do, and then you graduate and you don't have that anymore. Like, what worst case scenario could that look like going into your adulthood?
I think that's kind of when you just like start falling off and you kind of like, you know what I mean? If you don't have anywhere to go or like anyone telling you what to do, like a lot of times you just don't go work out anymore. You don't do those things that the trainer used to tell you to do. Like, why would you? You're not an athlete anymore. Because and then they kind of just like disappear a little bit. And like, yeah, they might go play stunt, but like they're not active anymore. And so then that kind of leads to just like and then you still have the stress of life. So then you like still get all stressed. And if you're not eating good and you're not active anymore, that just kind of puts you in a rabbit hole that keeps going downwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I can definitely see that too. So let's talk same two scenarios, but let's talk best case scenario. So you learn how to, eat pretty well. You learn how to be active consistently. What's the best case scenario coming out of college or coming out of being an athlete, both from an injury perspective and then also from that structure piece?
So obviously, kind of from the injury, it's going to be like it's going to prevent you typically from getting more injured. In a lot of ways, it's going to help you stay safer and like feel better and feel more confident as well. And then like with that transition piece, you've already been working on building your own structure and starting to learn to hold yourself accountable. You're not going to have to rely on the trainers or the coaches anymore. So it makes that transition so much easier. So it feels like you have control over your life, even though you're going to be kind of lost. Because that transition is like, oh, where am I going to work? Where, like, but you can at least be like, I don't know everything, but I know how to eat well and I know how to take care of myself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Awesome. Very cool. And so, talking about that shift for you, I know that you don't exactly know where you're going to end up yet, but what do you feel like you want to do out of school? And what do you want to continue to carry from what you've learned so far going into adulthood?
Um, I don't like kind of like you said, I don't know exactly where I'm going to end up with everything yet. It's kind of I have some crazy ideas of what might happen, but I do know that like what I'm thinking of doing if I like end up going Air Force or anything is I'm gonna have to be in pretty good shape to do that. And so I want to really continue to learn like the lifting and like all of those strength building that I've used to get ready and have that opportunity. Because if I'm not, I have to be strong to be able to do that. And I'm gonna have to be able to fuel my body. So I really want to keep like that eating changes that I've made to help fuel myself so I can make these changes and not like I'm not so worried about losing weight as much as I am of building strength and being able to be strong enough to do the things I want.
Like pull-ups.
I need to do the pull-ups. Getting with the passion, but they're so hard, but I need to get a pull-up.
Yeah, okay. I love it. That's cool. That'll be really cool to see that transition as well. And I love that you've already started to implement some things that are going to help you be successful in the long run. So, the last couple questions I have for you is what did you feel like was the most beneficial part about doing a program like this? We've kind of talked about the structure piece and stuff, but like, how do you think that this set you up for success moving forward?
I do think I think it's mainly just like how it implements it into it because it's a longer program, you're not making I've always been all or nothing. But you're not having to jump in and like you are jumping in, but you don't have to make, oh, I'm making all of these changes within like a week. And then you could do it for 5 weeks and then you get burnt out and you go right back to where you were. And so like it's a lot easier to like make these changes like one step at a time. So then by the time you're starting to get burnt out, those first things changes that you made are habits and you're not having to focus on them so hard.
Awesome, I love
But
that. And who do you think would be a good population for a program like this?
ooh, that's a good question. With where you're focusing now, kind of with like the rebrand and stuff, I do think it's really cool to do younger age with that transition out. Could be really beneficial for the long term. But I really think almost anybody could benefit from a program like this because it's more manageable and it helps with so much like health risks and so much of that aspect.
Yeah. Okay, cool. I really appreciate you taking the time. Okay, talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye.